I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Vallecitos Water District for Wednesday, October 18th, 2017. And could I ask Director Hernandez to lead us in the pledge?
Happy. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, could we have a roll call, please?
Director Evans is now taking absent. Director Hernandez.
Here.
Director Martin.
Here.
Director Snow.
Here.
Director Osborne.
Here. Okay, next is adoption of the agenda for this evening's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries unanimously. Public comment. It's the time to address a matter not on the agenda. I don't have any request to speak, so we'll continue on. Okay, consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar will be voted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or member of the public requests that a particular item be removed from the consent calendar, in which case it will be considered separately under action items.
Move to approve consent calendar?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
I do have one question on 1.6, if I may ask.
Go ahead.
Already voted on 1.6, which is Ed, I believe. As I was looking at the pictures, and thank you very much for putting before and after shots up there of what was done at lift station one, the beautification. And I understand the need. I read through the need for doing it was because of the fugitive gases we're keeping inside and they're eating out the walls now.
Yes.
Basically,
Yes.
right? Okay. So, other than, and by the way, I like the color scheme that you chose. The ambiance is very nice in there.
That would be,
I like
Mr.
the
Hubbard over
aqua,
there.
the aqua, because before it was all one color.
Yes.
So much better now. But let me ask you, other than painting, was anything replaced? It looks like all the piping was just cleaned of rust.
no, there was some steel that had to be replaced. There's a hatch. Don't know if it's not in the pictures there. There was a hatch that was in bad condition that was replaced. There was, I believe, a steel door, Jason's also.
Yeah, there were some structural improvements as well. The steel decking
Yeah.
on top of that roof, which looks like it was painted, was actually a new interior deck that was installed.
Well,
on
it's a
top
new
of that.
deck in there. Okay,
Yeah.
it wasn't just cleaned or
No,
sandblasted.
it was cleaned and sandblasted and painted, but then there was additional improvements put in. The railing is new that you see there because it was steel, it's
Yeah.
stainless steel.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted
There
to,
was-
congratulations on the color scheme.
Yeah. It looks nice. No one gets to see it except the.
I can't wait to see our new bathroom.
All right, thank you, Ed. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Did that right?
Oh, we already did that.
We'll just check it.
Vote's the same.
So you be sure you had it right first.
Okay, on to action items. 2.1, Senate Bill 555 by Senator Lois Walt, Urban Retail Water Suppliers Water Loss Management. Chris?
Thank you, President Hillethard. Let me pull up my PowerPoint. So I'm here to talk to you about Senate Bill 555, the Water Loss Management Senate Bill. California Senate Bill SB 555 passed back in October of 2015. It requires urban water suppliers such as the district to submit a completed and validated water loss audit annually to the Department of Water Resources, to DWR, on starting in October 2017. It was set up, the Water Loss Collaborative which was basically the California-Nevada section of the AWWA, was leading a group of stakeholders to help form this water loss control collaborative. And then this collaborative, in turn, created the Water Loss Technical Assistance Program, or TAP. And what you see there on your slides is some of the information that the Water Loss Collaborative created in these TAP, or as we call them, TAP sessions.
Chris, I think we're having a little technical difficulty.
Oh.
They're not seeing it, so.
Is it on your screens?
No.
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Sorry, John. We need a Senate bill for audio video loss.
Yeah.
You want to have money.
That was forethought.
Yeah.
Hand puppets, what's,
President,
I'm ready, Mr. GM, you continue.
the next two items don't require any audio visual if it'd be,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's table this one.
We'll
Okay.
come back to the same. Okay, item 2.2, legal services solicitation.
yeah, I'll take that. Thank you, President Elthar. So this item is requesting direction from the board regarding the assignment of up to 2 board members to participate in what's called a screening committee to evaluate proposals for legal services for the district. The district's legal needs have been well-served by Jeff Scott, our current general counsel with Scott Jackson Law for over 20 years. District Resolution 1484, however, does state that it's the district's policy to competitively solicitate professional services that are in excess of $100,000 per year. We should do that at a minimum of once every 5 years. And it has been over 5 years since the district has done that, and our legal services do cost over $100,000. On Friday of this year, September 29th of this year, the district did release an RFP to law firms that are interested in providing general counsel services to the district. The deadline for proposals is Friday, October 27th. The selection for a firm providing professional services is usually done in kind of a 2-step process. The first step would be what we call an initial screening panel, and they would determine which of the firms submitting proposals are shortlisted or get to move forward to the final selection committee or process. So it is staff's recommendation that the entire board participate in the final selection, so all 5 board members would be involved in the final selection. The RFP, as it went out, however, it did state that the proposals would be initially screened by an internal panel made up of staff members and up to 2 board members. So it is staff's recommendation that 2 board members and no more than 2 be assigned to the initial screening committee for the selection. The report in front of you does provide several options for the board's consideration. Option 1 would be to utilize the existing Legal and Legislative Affairs Committee. Obviously, the word legal and legislative is in there, so that it kind of makes some sense there. that's currently comprised of Directors Martin and Sinella. Option 2 would be to utilize the existing Public Awareness, Personnel, and Policy Committee. This committee is currently comprised of Directors Evans and Hernandez. That kind of makes sense as well because the General Counsel acts somewhat as an extension of staff, and the issue that brought this up was a policy issue, compliance with the policy, so it kind of makes sense to use that committee as well. Option 3 would kind of be a hybrid, and you could form a committee just for the specific purpose. So it wouldn't be a standing committee, it would be for the specific purpose of screening the proposals and making recommendations to the full board, at which point in time that committee would no longer be together. It could include two board members and possibly one from the Legal and Legislative Affairs Committee and one from the Public or the Policy Committee. Alternatively, at the board's direction or discretion, it could be any 2 board members. And option 4, for the board's consideration, don't have any board members on the policy or on the screening committee and just allow staff to do it. So with that, and from the staff member perspective, I'd be making a decision. Myself, I would be on the initial screening, and I may pick 1 or 2 staff members to help as well. And we would develop criteria leading up to that. So with that, staff is recommending that the board provide staff direction as to who they would like to sit on that committee.
All right, thank you. I'll open it up for discussion. I saw Director Martin's hand first.
Yes, I would like to serve on this committee. I am on the Legal Legislative Committee, which this does fall under the purview of, as well as Mike does. And all we're doing is screening down to bring to the board the top number and then make the full board decision. So we're gonna be at 20,000 feet. The board's gonna be at ground zero making that decision. So with that, I would say that we stick with the Legal and Legislative Affairs Committee as it stands now, which would be myself and Michael, but the full board's gonna make the decision.
Thank you. Director Hernandez.
I would also like to serve on that committee, and for the other reasons similar, except for the policy issue. It is a policy issue, and it is a personnel issue of some sorts relative to staff. So, I mean, I think cutting the baby in half would be option number 3, where there's one of each of us. And towards that end, I'd move to recommend option 3, a member of the Legal Committee and a member of the Policy Committee attend with the staff group that is going to be selected by the general manager.
Okay, well, I'll second that motion for the purposes of discussion. Director Snow.
Thank you, President Althorp. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer. This belongs in the legal committee's realm. And I'd even add, if for some reason the board did not think it should be in the legal, then it's a procurement issue. And then it would be in the finance committee's realm. But the public awareness is more along the lines of what Chris and Lisa do from a public relations standpoint. And policies, everything that we deal with is a policy, so we'd have that committee, they'd be involved with every single thing, from the budget to the audit to everything else. So I think it's very clearly should be within the legal committee because we're looking for legal services. But if we don't want to have that, then it must default to the finance committee as a procurement matter. So I can't support the motion that's on the dais now.
I will look forward to a substitute motion. Going with option 1, using the Legal Committee and Legislative Committee, which is already standing in place. I don't see any reason to change that. It is a legal decision. We're the people that, who knows what will be on next year, the year after, but right now, it is a legal beagle type of thing, as well as we do sit on the Finance Committee, so it's interesting to look at it from that. So my motion would be to use Director Sinella and Director Martin
As the legal committee?
as the legal committee to serve on this committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a substitute motion to use the legal committee, so we'll take that item first. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no.
Aye.
Substitute motion passes 3-1.
Oh, you said aye, though, so do you need to either no or?
No, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Director Snow.
Glenn, I didn't, unless I missed it here, but I didn't see that in our packet that, have you provided us the names of the firms who the RFP went out to?
No, but I could do that if the board would
Yeah,
like.
if you could. Do you know off the top of your head how many firms that it was sent to?
Yeah, we originally sent it to 9 firms, and then after it went out on the street, a 10th firm contacted me, expressed interest. I did some research on them and thought that they would be a viable candidate, so Diane also submitted the packet to them. So I believe there's 10
Okay.
firms that may be submitting.
If you could send that to us, I'd appreciate it, at least to me. I don't know if everybody else wants it.
I'll send it to everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And as the chair of the legal committee, I'd like to recommend that we meet sooner than later. If we can maybe talk about our schedules for later this month, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
So shall we do that at the end of this meeting? Is that what you're saying?
Sure.
At the end of this meeting, we'll get together?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, so we'll move back to item 2.1.
Thanks, Chris. Sorry about that.
No problem. So back to Senate Bill 555. Senate Bill 555 was passed in October of 2015. Requires urban water suppliers, such as the district, to submit a completed and then also a validated water loss audit annually to the California Department of Water Resources, starting in October of 2017, so last month. The Water Loss Collaborative was headed by California Nevada section of the AWWA, leading a group of stakeholders to combat water loss in California, all part of the governor's effort to make water conservation a way of life in California. So the Water Loss Collaborative in turn created the Water Loss Technical Assistance Program, or TAP, a group of sessions, training sessions for water agency staff to participate in to get them through the water loss process and get them to be able to submit those documents in October of 2017. The Water Loss TAP had 4 different sessions. They like to call them wave sessions. For Vallecitos, we completed wave session 1 on June 14th of 2016. Wave 2 completed in December of 2016. Wave 3 in February of 2017. And then wave 4 just a couple months ago in September of 2017. The slides you're seeing here are some of the taken from the actual water loss TAP sessions. They basically spell out who they recommend should be part of your TAP group: water conservation, supply and operations, billing and finance, and engineering. And so for Vallecitos, the team was Ed Pedrazi in water operations, Mike Arthur in finance, Rob Shaw in engineering, and myself from water conservation. As part of this training, they make you learn a lot of different terminology. I don't want to go through every last term that they develop as part of this process, but just some of the ones to show you. They have words like apparent losses, and that's what they expect from misreads from meters or meters that are under reading, and then other things like real losses, where you actually have water that's getting lost through pipe breaks and things like that. Here's kind of the actual water loss terminology as it's spelled out, all the different things that go into what actually went into this system versus what came out of the system. Certain amounts were obviously went through meters, we billed, we received revenue for. Other amounts may have been unbilled metered consumption, like here at the district offices itself. Unauthorized consumption, which would be water theft, things like that. Background leakage, unreported leakage, lots of different terms, and they're trying to drill down and get all the water agencies up in California to kind of come in and provide this information in the same format, using the same set of terminology, same sets of figures. So here's the real answer is the validated audit results. So this is us providing information to a validating committee that looked at it. This is for calendar year 2016. And the water that was supplied into the system was 14,000 acre feet. Authorized consumption was 13,364 acre feet. Water losses measured 873 acre feet, and non-revenue water was 949 acre feet. And we received a data validity score of 70. The range when we talked to them was between 50 and 70, so we were at the high end of the range for it. Some interesting notes you might have seen in the packet. The software that we use, basically an Excel spreadsheet, noted that for Vallecitos in calendar year 2016, the customer's retail costs were less than or equal to our water production costs, basically meaning the district was selling water below cost for calendar year 2016. And what's important about that is you'll probably see that again when we report this back in 2017, because the rate increase won't go into effect until 2018. Some of the recommendations for improvement that came out of it was the validators suggested that the district consider a customer meter testing program. Basically, the lack of a real distinct and defined meter testing program was one of the lower scores ratings we got on that water audit data validity score. And implementing a meter testing program should increase that score in future years, and that recommendation is being reviewed by finance. This new process is going to be annual, so we'll be coming back with this annually. It used to be that these reports would get submitted in urban water management plans once every 5 years, but now the state's demanding that these get submitted annually. What we also expect to see out of it is that there'll be some sort of standard water loss per system that'll be established within the state, where they express it as a volume per capita or a volume per connection that they expect entities to lose just in their system, just based on factors like the age of the infrastructure or the condition of the infrastructure and so forth. And that concludes my presentation, and my coworkers are also here in case you have questions from the water loss TAP team.
Director Murphy?
Who is this all-empowered validator?
For this specific, for our specific group, the state contracted it out, and the actual name of the company was, I think it might be on one of my, one of my slides, but the state contracted out that work to engineering firm.
Do we have to pay them?
No, we didn't have to pay them. They were basically funded through grants from DWR.
A year or two ago, I asked for some specific numbers on water laws. We didn't have any. So how did you come up with them?
Well, it was a rather long, complicated process, and I'm not sure about the water loss figure that was promoted previously.
It's a guesstimation at best.
So the audit software that was presented here, it's an AWWA software. What it does is it takes the information that you give it here, which is the water that you purchase, the water that you export to other agencies, and then the water that you sell. And then based on that there, it takes the difference there and it kind of breaks it down how much water it thinks that you're losing here that are in leaks, that's in potential meter inaccuracies, and then just like billing handling errors. So it's really just an estimate by the software. That's how it's coming up with those numbers there for loss.
Okay, so it's a guesstimate.
It's a guesstimate.
On the software that was put together by somebody
Correct.
somewhere. Okay.
Mhm.
Because for fire, we don't know how much they use.
We're actually, I believe we're actually starting to, I don't know if it's are we starting to meter when we do testing there?
Well, everything that we do, we have meters on.
Right.
So if we're flushing a line from a fire hydrant, And we did reach out to City of San Marcos Fire, which is our biggest consumer as far as fire department's concerned. And they will tell us when they fight a fire, how many hydrants they're hooked up to, how long they're fighting that fire, so we can estimate, because they don't have meters on all the
Right.
hydrants, obviously.
Right, that makes sense.
And if it is one that's going through to a fire service, then those meters will be read at the end of the month.
And again, we guesstimate when a hydrant gets knocked off and the water's spurting.
We actually
We
do
try to
have-
figure out how
We
long.
actually do have from a company that makes the fire hydrants, an estimate based on pressure, so we know what the pressure is in that part of the zone, and then we have the time that it got hit, the time that we shut it off, and we can estimate it that way. And we're working on ways at our different pressure stations now, there's a way to install pretty inexpensive meter through using, Director Ellis, President Ellis would be familiar with clay valves, but they have a software now that we can actually run those as a meter, so we're looking at doing that maybe in the next budget. Be a little better handle.
But knowing the system, we're probably gonna get a better rating next year. And now we know how to use it, we know what to say.
Yeah, they were actually pretty impressed with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Compared to other agencies, especially. There's a lot of the low-hanging fruit was already completed by us before this audit. And some of the other stuff we're looking at to see if it's worth the money to do so.
Thank you very much.
Director Hernandez.
And the rate between 50 to 70, 50 good or 50 bad?
So the scale would go from 0, which I can't imagine anybody ever getting to 100, which I also can't imagine anybody ever getting
Ah.
unless they, built a new system today and put in all the requirements that they had. And so that's where they saw their range was from 50 to 70.
So
50
that would be the
low.
average.
50 would be low, 70 was high, and I think we were the second highest one that our validator saw.
We have the best water loss, meaning we lose less water.
Well, really, that score is how much they believe your data, how accurate your data is. So that's what that score is trying to really point out, is how believable is all of your information.
I see.
And so it's not specifically, gee, are you the best at, not losing water, but how much do you believe your data?
Okay.
It sounds like a program that came from Sacramento, for sure. So I did want to ask, I see the one recommendation for improvement. Were there any other recommendations, or was this the only one?
That one was the biggest one, and I think it's the one that we can do on our own. They had some other ones where they really would like us to test the meters from our own water supplier, from CWA. And that's a big process, and that's really in CWA's purview rather than ours.
We don't own those meters, and they're extremely large meters with no way of getting water to us if they take it out.
But you could get the water authority's data.
We get their-
How often
We-
they test this.
We did get that,
Okay.
and it's every 6 months they do a calibration. But a calibration is different than an actual flow test. They would actually have to pull these very large meters out of the ground and then run a specific amount of water through them to prove that they in fact are measuring that flow. The type of meter they are, the tree meters, been around for a long time. There's no moving parts that wear out. It's based on pressures, so as long as the pressure meters that they're using are accurate, which is what they test, prove, then there's an algorithm that shows you the flow.
So one good thing is all of the water authorities member agencies are gonna get the same comment on their water loss audit, so we can work with the water authority to try to get them to help us with that.
Oh, okay, the whole thing is kind of strange, but I do like their recommendation, and I was a little bit surprised that we didn't have some sort of meter testing program. Have you guys had a chance to kind of reach out to other districts to see if they have a meter testing program?
Informally, yeah, I've had some conversations with other general managers. It runs the gamut. Some do, and some don't even touch any of them. So there's no
Yeah,
standardization.
I'd be interested. I suspect you're gonna follow up once finance and you kind of get the idea of what this might consist of, what it might cost, and
Yeah.
what the pros, cons, all that stuff.
Yeah, we certainly will, and I think, the testing program is one thing, and I don't think the testing program would be that extensive. or expensive, but what you find out of the testing program may lead you to say, hey, we need to replace a whole series or whole, generation of meters, and that may get expensive. If, for example, if you're testing all your 5/8 inch meters that are over 20 years old, I'm picking up just at random, and it says, hey, these are recording only half the water that it should be recording, we may want to replace all of those. So there may be another phase of costs associated, depending what you find in your testing program.
So, and you're tracking all of your time and putting this down so that we can send a bill to the state? Or will this just be yet another state unmandated, yeah, unfunded mandate from the state? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good report.
All right, on to item 2.3, Aqua Election of Officers.
All right, I'll take that one. So at its 2017 Fall Conference in Anaheim, Aqua will be holding a general session membership meeting on Wednesday, November 29th. One of the primary items on the agenda is the nomination and election of president and vice president for the 2018-2019 term, and they'll also be voting on proposed amendments to the Aqua bylaws. Aqua does have a nominating committee that has announced a candidate slate that includes current Vice President Brent Hasley for president and current Federal Affairs Committee Chair Stephen Lamar for vice president. Nominations from the floor will be accepted prior to the vote, but must be supported by a resolution from the agency that's making the nominations. At the meeting, Aqua will issue only one proxy card for voting purposes to each member agency based on the designated voting representative from that agency. And that's basically what we're here tonight, to find out who the board wants to designate as the voting representative at the fall conference.
Director Martin?
I would nominate our senior member, Mr. Hernandez, to vote for us.
Second.
And before you vote, we just need to make sure that Director Hernandez will be there on Wednesday, November 29th, and will be there between 9 and 12 when he can pick up the proxy card.
He also could utilize the substitute motion at this time, right?
Right. Well, I'm planning to be there unless something happens that I'm not. And if I'm not, then somebody else will be stepping in.
Well, there's, yeah.
Well, you won't be
Yeah.
able to step in.
What?
No one else will be able to step in for you.
Really?
Well, as I understand it, we have to
You've got-
designate
you've
the
got-
All right,
person.
then do not, I do not,
Yeah.
do not wish to take the opportunity.
Diane, do you know if the form allows us to put a backup in case the selected one can't attend?
I don't believe so.
Looks like
I
it might.
don't,
I don't believe it does.
No, it doesn't.
no.
In that case,
I'm Betty.
I would change my motion and to move it to our board president,
Okay,
who I think will do a wonderful job voting for us.
I'd be happy to do
I'll
that.
change my second.
All right. Been moved and seconded to authorize the board president to be the designated voter for the Aqua election of officers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries unanimously.
Don't let us down.
Okay,
Yeah, step up for us.
all right. I think that's all for action items. On to reports. General Manager.
Yeah, I got a few items here, and I'm gonna look to Ed if I misspeak on any of on the first one here. So, County Water Authority will be conducting a 10-day shutdown of the treated water system, starting November 5th through November 14th, to perform system maintenance. The desal plant will also be down at the same time. So that becomes a little bit problematic, but supplies from the water that we get from the Eliminating Municipal Water District will be available, and we will make sure that all of our tanks are topped off heading into the shutdown.
If I may ask,
Go ahead.
don't they talk?
Well, it's actually coordinated. They do talk because a lot of it all goes into the same pipeline, and they need to do system maintenance. So they're putting either imported treated water or desal treated water into the same system. So they need to shut down the system to do the maintenance, so they can't have either supply getting into the system. I'll ask Ed if he wants to add anything to
But
that.
they could pump us ours.
Depends
It's not
what part of the
same-
system
it's
they're
not the same
maintaining.
system.
Yeah, General Manager Prohm's correct. They are actually inspecting the pipe that water travels in. So that's part of the reason that the desal plant has to go offline. And they've done that every time they take down the aqueduct number 2, they take down the desal plant for maintenance and for inspections. So unfortunately, we won't have that, but beyond Levenheim Water District water, we will have our connection on the first aqueduct from the Water Authority. That is staying online, so we can bring in several million gallons per day at that connection. And then the Weiss plant, hopefully will be back to full capacity in its Oceanside's plant, but it's in Vista, so that can help feed our very northernmost
And
part of the district.
We're capable of 100 million gallons in storage,
120.
120, which is how many acre feet?
I don't know, the calculation in my head.
It's about 3 times,
Yeah.
about 300.
Well, 325,851
How much do we
gallons
use a
per acre
day?
foot. Pardon me?
At this time of year, how much do we use a day, roughly?
It can get, on the hot days like today, it can get up there quite a bit. We might use, 30 million gallons of water in one day. But the way we have the system designed now, we can move water around in lots of different ways. So that water that we're bringing in from Levenheim, if we need to, we can bring it into the downtown area. But as long as the first aqueduct is online, that pretty much will feed the entire middle section of the district. Levenheim will feed the southern portion, and then our 73 million gallons in the Twin Oaks area easily can handle the northern section.
Will our customers now notice a difference in the downtown area? Because they're used to getting mostly desal.
Well, it actually, that plant kicks on and off quite a bit. So the only people that typically notice it is our breweries. And that we've had one meeting, we didn't get a very good turnout, but it does impact them quite a bit because of the water quality changes. So we are working, doing an outreach with them to try and let them know. But unfortunately, it's not always a scheduled shutdown of the treatment plant. Sometimes something happens and it just kicks it offline, and it takes a day or two to bring it back up. So,
So when's this scheduled for again?
November 4th through November, or 5th through the 14th.
5th through the 14th.
And you can count on a Santa Ana occurring during that period.
Yeah.
This is probably our most
And
very,
fires.
It always happens,
this is
okay?
our most volatile time of year with the Santa Ana. Sometimes it's cold and wet, sometimes hot and dry, and from day to day it switches.
And they have, in the past, tried to schedule it. The worst one we ever had was in 2006. It was in February, so it was supposed to be nice and
It was
cool.
terrible.
And it was over 95 degrees the entire time, red flag conditions, there were fires breaking out. And we lost 30% of our storage in the first 8 hours of that shutdown because they started it on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, it was
Well, I
brilliant.
think the district's done a yeoman's job. I remember 25 years ago, 30 years ago, we used to get residents used to get a notice. Don't use water, we're shutting down and we're not doing that anymore.
No, and you'll hear this very, very few times, but operations will actually point to engineering and thank them profusely for the job they've done over the years to increase storage and increase our capacity to move water throughout the system.
That was before James, though, right?
Some of it James was here for, so yeah.
Well, the other thing it points to is the value of supply diversity. This connection to Levenheim is extremely valuable
Yeah,
in that regard.
We would probably be looking to reach out, just because of the weather pattern, to our customers at least a little bit. I mean, we'll probably put something on the website, but we don't have to go out and ask for conservation unless something drastic happens. But the southern end, we would typically have to pump the water over the hill. If we didn't have that Levenheim connection, we'd be a little bit pressed.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
thank you to the
Thank you
board
very
for moving forward on that.
And
That's,
I would imagine that the Water Authority, if they saw conditions being really severe at the beginning of this, they could delay the shutdown. Because if it's a severe Santa Ana's and if there's fires in the local area, they would delay the maintenance activities.
Yeah, there's a point up to which they can do that, and then there's kind of a point in
Then
no
you can't.
return.
Right.
yeah, because it impacts Metropolitan.
Yeah.
Metropolitan actually shuts down the pipe at the plant in Skinner. And then they have all these contractors lined up. Lots of money.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, next item, just a reminder, the Water Academy is tomorrow. Registration will start at 8:30. We already have 49, Chris left. We have 49 people that have signed up, so hopefully we'll have a good attendance. We'll do presentations and the admin site tour in the morning, then we'll have lunch, and then there'll be the bus tour in the afternoon. Lunch will be provided for those in attendance. And just wanted to give the board a brief update on the County Water Authority Metropolitan Water District lawsuit. I think I've updated you on certain things, but As you know, the state Supreme Court decided not to take up the appeal from the Water Authority, meaning the decisions from the appeals court stand. So we did get some wins in there, which is good, but what I wanted to point out was the legal costs. The Water Authority did get a public records request from a newspaper, and they turned over the records for what the legal costs were in processing this lawsuit. And just for the Water Authority, not including Metropolitan or some of Metropolitan's other member agencies, the Water Authority alone has spent over $21 million on this lawsuit. So the Water Authority will be getting back more than 21 million, plus they may be able to get some of that 21 million in legal fees back. So it's a net win, but it was nowhere near the win that the Water Authority was hoping for. So that's all I had tonight.
Thank you.
What a surprise.
I'm sorry?
What a surprise.
All right, next is District Legal Counsel.
Yeah, here's a couple of things. SB 229 was passed recently, and if there wasn't any doubt before, that made it clear that accessory dwelling unit law applies to the special districts. And that's basically the one that sort of exempts them from, if you follow all the criteria, you don't have to pay the capacity and sewer, water and sewer capacity charges.
You don't have to pay an additional connection.
Yeah, so
That's not retroactive though, is it?
No, it certainly is not. It certainly is not, by Godfrey.
We can, I think by ordinance, if you want to pass, we could probably.
Oh, I would move that.
Too much trouble, too much trouble.
You're conflicted.
Also, the California Supreme Court granted review in the Plantier versus Ramona case. That was the one, is the 218 challenge to the sewer fees, and how the sewer fees are arrived at. The issue, though, before the court is a more narrow issue on how much participation you have to be in the 218 process in order to raise the legal challenge. So, but that's a good thing. I mean, at least they're gonna take a look at it, and they did decide not to decertify the current Court of Appeal opinion, but, the Court of Appeal opinion, but that's good that they're gonna do that. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. San Diego County Water Authority, do you have anything else, Glenn?
Nothing specific.
All right, on to Encino Wastewater Authority Capital Improvement Committee.
We had our meeting this morning, and SCADA was the big awarded contract for $1.18 million to implement their upgrade on their SCADA, the supervisory control and data acquisition. It's only taken me 7 years to remember that, my God. And they have the design contractor, the implementer, and then they have someone who is going to be monitoring both, Timberline, who has been a adjunct to our Encina, to watch them all and make sure everything knits together. But it's a multi-million-dollar 5 to 7 year project. So we're going to, and the contract was interesting because it's tasked orientated. So there just were 2 tasks put forward today. So we're going to keep seeing that, and before you know it, nobody needs to come to work. It'll be all right from your home. You work on the computer, turn a knob, shut down a valve, you'll be happy. So that was the Capital Committee.
All right, thank you.
Where are they gonna take showers?
The Encina Policy and Finance Committee, we did not have a meeting in October, so nothing to report there. Next is standing committees. I think we had an engineering committee meeting on the 9th.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we did.
Okay.
And the crux of it is in the minutes, but we did not receive, or wasn't in the minutes, but we received a pretty nice map of projects that are possibly going to happen in our community, and then data about the water usage and the sewer usage. In 45 years, this is the most comprehensive map I've seen about what's going on in our community.
It was a nice map.
Yeah, you ask the city about what's going on, and they go, nah, well, this or that, most of them, or some of them.
I think it is in the agenda packet.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just look.
Yeah.
It's hard to read.
Oh, Well, then you got it. Okay, great. I'm sorry, I looked there and I didn't see it. But take a look at it, and, because it does a nice full story. And that was, the rest is in the minutes, pretty concisely put
All
together.
right, thank you. I think that was the only standing committee we had.
No, there was a
Oh, no, we had
policy,
a
policy.
policy committee meeting.
Oh, you did on the 16th?
That's right, and we, that's in the minutes as well. We talked, my mind's drawing a blank.
So there was the billing dispute.
Oh,
issue
yes.
under-
The billing dispute, that we had a billing dispute, one person. And we got, and not to belabor it, it was, in my opinion, a silly dispute on the customer's part, but it was handled properly. Everybody took the time and attention to talk to this individual and let them know. Had to do with a submittal of a standard amount of dollars on a bill, and then it was not the right amount, and she got an overage, and she got a notice in the mail. So that potentially could have led to a lockout. Well, that was a long way away from happening, but the customer, ratepayer, was highly upset after all these years of being a tenant and a customer to get a letter like that. So I think feathers were smoothed over, everybody was happy, and we left the policy the way it is, because it's quite liberal compared to some other agencies who you are locked off if you, after the 24 hours. And having been there myself during the Depression, Vallecitos is very compassionate and will work with everyone to make sure that you have water, unless, of course, you're a flake and then you're gonna get cut off. That was my opinion. I mean, it wasn't a policy issue. So that was pretty much the policy meeting.
All right, thank you. Next is director's reports on travel, conferences, and seminars. I'll start with Director Sinella.
Yeah, I attended CAWA yesterday morning, and we had yet another briefing on the Bay Delta and some of the activities that are going on up there, and kind of an overview of the various different challenges and the potential fixes. However, they never did outline one of the fixes being, let's take care of the fish issue. And so that was kind of interesting, but all of the options, what I took away from it is they've been battling it for 30 years. Not a whole lot's been done. There was not a whole lot of optimism that things will get done in the next 30 years. And if there are any solutions, they're gonna cost billions of dollars. And so we'll see where it goes.
I think you got that nailed right.
Oh, okay.
You nailed it.
Correctly? Okay, good.
Director Martin.
I too was at the COA meeting. At the risk of going over and over and saying the same thing, a couple of things I'd like to bring up is I think I'd like to see COA bring some voices in from the other side. We constantly hear the one side, let's spend the money on it, and not the other sides of it. I'm gonna quote two quick trips that I've been on, both to the Bay Delta. One was 4 years ago, and a bus trip, and we went to the state water canal. When we got there, there was buildings and people all over and screens and netting, and they explained how, if they catch 6 smelt, they gotta shut everything down, and it was huge. We spent an hour there. The last trip, last year, that I went on, we went to the federal canal, which is within eyesight of the state canal. And when I pulled in there, I was quite enamored at missing everything. It was a canal and a little bit of a forebay. And on the forebay, which I thought was interesting, they had logs to stop things from drifting in, but on 2 of those logs were 2 really big sea lions. And 2 guys manned the entire place. And I said, so what do you do with the smelt? He goes, see those sea lions? We don't have a smelt problem. Now, they're delivering water to the same place the state is. They run parallel down the 5 together, and it shows the idiocy. Also, on that first trip, there was a Dr. Gumbaya, don't remember the name, that had set up a huge area there where they were actually cultivating smelt, a hatchery, a fishery. And they had hundreds of thousands to millions little smelt being born, and I'm going, well, there's the answer to the smelt thing. You're gonna just, make a fishery and make more smelt. That's gone now. So it's like, no, it's just interesting to see the hypocrisy of what's going on. It's not about the smelt. In my opinion, what it's really about is all the landowners down there, which now Met is one, but all the landowners down there that have had their farms subsided even further because of their overcropping and overuse and leaving the debris there. And now their dikes have to be raised and they don't want to pay for it. They found someone to pay for it, the water districts. And I think that's where the money is all about, giving the money to private property owners. So I'm totally against the Bay fix, which they've had for 75 years. But I know the attorneys and the consultant that gave that presentation gets paid for doing that. I mean, when people get paid for doing something, I have a hard time applauding them. So it's like, well, you get paid to do it. Okay, and it's your job. So I'd like to hear the other side. Maybe Kyle could do that, show there's more than one side to the fix. And from what I can understand, he was kind of speaking out of both sides, because he used to be with the Water Authority, and they didn't look at it the same way he does today. But he's a hired gun, so he goes wherever the wind blows. But anyhow, that was my, on that. The other thing I did, section 9 and 10, we're a member of 10, which is the lower. They had to get together on the 9th, and went up to Orange County, and looked at their dam, the Prado Dam, as well as all of the space they have up there. They have a huge estuary up there. And they've raised their dam, and it can hold X amount of gallons, but they haven't tested it out yet. But again, I always look for the things that really are funny. While we pull up to where he takes us out to show us everything, and they have a little trailer there that's set up for the guys that work there, that cultivate the ducks. In the background, when I get there, I go, who's setting off those fireworks? He goes, no. We have a range over here. And this is a practice range where they're practicing, because duck season's in 2 weeks. I went, wait a second, now let me get this right. We're doing all this so we have a ducks, but yet you have a range there where they're practicing for in 2 weeks, they're gonna be shooting the ducks. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, is this the state of California or what? So I said, so now you're shooting over there, and this is all a reserve, you can't be careful, you can't spit on the ground, because you'll poison it. You go, what do you do with all the pellets? What pellets? Well, the pellets, the shotgun. Oh, well, they're over in the one area. I was like, yeah, well, you're not supposed to use lead in California, but a lot of people do, because they like it better for whatever reason, hunters. So again, it just amazes me when you see the amount of money that's being spent, and then we have this sanctuary, and here the guys are lined up with shotguns, getting ready for the ducks in 2 weeks.
Sitting ducks.
But now they're not allowed to take too many. I said, well, who checks how many? Well, they know what their limit is. So no one checks how many? Well, they know their limit. The guy didn't know. I'm going, you run this place, you don't know what their limit is? So I mean, just sad, but billions of dollars being spent out there to save the ducks.
Thank you.
That's my report.
Mine is, I did appreciate the Kawa presentation, because it did give me some insight of different things that I had not really heard in the past, which the big one was, regardless of what everybody says, we're gonna need that water coming down from someplace, but somehow or another. And so, I don't put much faith, I wouldn't bet a lot of money that's gonna happen anytime soon, but we'll see what happens. And then I had a committee meeting relative to CASA and the video contest that we presented. We're gonna only spend $4,500 this year, seniors, and went to the executive board, and they approved it all. Everybody's very happy, so that's gonna take place here in the next month or 3. So we don't have to worry about taking photos.
All right, thank you. I attended the Council of Water Utilities meeting yesterday as well. And so my takeaway is, even by water industry standards, the pace of progress on those issues up there is frustratingly slow. And so, you know what, in my career over the past 35 years, I've seen this issue not really move too far forward in all these years. And, you know, the endangered species up there have been tanking for a long time. Their situations keeps getting worse and worse, and they keep blaming it on water supply issues, and we keep taking less and less water, and they still keep tanking. So I don't know what the solution is there, but, you know, such things as the non-native sport fish, you know, in that system, the striped bass, the environmentalists seem to just leave them alone. They're kind of off limits for whatever reason. I guess the sport fishing industry is such a powerful lobby that's sacred. They can't touch non-native species. So, you know, if you're looking at solutions, I don't think they're particularly, you know, the notion of co-equal goals. Maybe in terminology only and not really in practice. It sure seems to me like the environmentalists have got this thing cornered. So it's very frustrating to see the lack of progress on this. So. Kind of my take on it. All right, we'll move on to director's comments, future agenda items. Director Snell.
A couple things. First, and I know Chris left, but they did, our public relations department, I thought, did a phenomenal job, and I don't know if you guys saw it on Facebook, but we participated in an activity called the Day Without Water recently, and our finance team participated in a video that Lisa and Tom and others were part of. I thought they did a great job on that. If you have not seen it, it's both funny, but it's also educational. And maybe at the next board meeting, if you guys have not seen it, maybe we can throw it up on the screen. It only takes like 90 seconds.
You show at the beginning of the meeting.
Yep. So kudos to everybody involved with that. That was awesome. And General Manager Pruitt sent out an email or a text message recently to us about the invitation that we have received from Senator Joel Anderson's office for a meeting on November 2nd at his San Marcos office. He's one of the few good guys up there in Sacramento, so I think it's very important that we take advantage of that invitation to meet with him. If you haven't already gotten back to the general manager, if you could do so one way or the other, I'd appreciate it. And I would also like for the board to consider either, if it's not appropriate tonight, we can bring it back at the next meeting, but I think because this is going to be somewhat of an official business and interaction with our state legislature, that we make it a per diem authorized meeting.
All right, thank you. Director Martin.
Oh, I have one more thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. I also attended, it wasn't like an official board capacity, but I attended a breakfast at Palomar West Estates with Mayor Desmond and Vice Mayor Jones 2 weekends ago. And I just thought you guys would be interested in knowing, this is the third year in a row that I've attended this event with them. And the way it usually works is the elected officials get an opportunity to kind of give a little bit of a spiel, you know, kind of a short update of what's going on, and then there's this long Q&A session. And over the last 2 years that I've done it, I was actually getting a lot more of the questions than even the mayor and the vice mayor, because we were in the middle of the drought and, you know, rate increases and everything else. This year, though, 2 weeks ago, I'm happy to report that they were more interested in why the hometown buffet closed down than they were anything to do with water.
That's
so
great. That's great
I didn't get a
news.
single question, so I took it as no news is good news,
Yeah.
and so we must be doing something right.
Great. Director Martin.
Not on the agenda, but just to back up, you asked about the Joel Anderson meeting that we're going to. I don't think that's something we have to ask for per diem for. I think that's automatic. It's political.
I'll take a look at it. If I think it would, if we could benefit from direction, I could add it to the agenda on November 1st, which is the day before the meeting, so.
Great. Yeah.
Director Hernandez.
Have we have 60 days to stand by on our property before any movement from our side takes place?
Correct.
And we're 40 or so now?
We probably, yeah, in the 30 to 40.
Okay.
And we've heard from one of the three parties that we sent the letter to.
Great, thank you. No? All right.
With that, I think we're adjourned.